WHO Special Envoy for Climate Change and Health, Dr. Vanessa Carey, for a conversation with FP's Editor-in-Chief, Ravi Agarwal.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I think we can do a better round of applause for this group on stage. It's a real honor and pleasure to have the three of you on stage, Secretary Carey, Dr. Tedros. I've interviewed each of you separately, but never together. Secretary Carey, let me just start with you. These two are here for very obvious reasons, you less so. We're here to talk. We're here to talk about health.
I've never had my place in life put as succinctly.
But this is important because, you know, this is UNGA week. You know, hardcore geopolitics is the order of, you know, the day of business over there, which is, you know, most of your old career. But you're here today at a health forum. Just tell us why and connect the dots for us there.
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you for the privilege of being here. And I'm honored to be here with Dr. Tedros and my daughter. Let me make it clear to everybody. I had to wrangle to get myself in here. I wanted to come and be part of this, and I appreciate my co-panelists in permitting it for the precise reason of the question you just asked. What the hell does health have to do with this? And the answer is everything. Greenhouse gases are pollutants. We used to talk about pollution. We don't now for some odd reason. 7 million people a year die from the bad quality of air. And that's getting worse in many parts of the world because of coal-fired power and so forth. There's a direct linkage to what's creating the challenge of climate and how you can build community and build adaptation and build resilience to those things. And a community that is ravaged by a disease or doesn't have adequate health care, doesn't have the ability to be able to take care of people, the community is going to fall apart. And then you have refugees augmented by the fact that you have stress, you know, heat stress levels that people can't work in, people can't live in. So it's absolutely imperative that we all connect the dots. And I'm privileged to be able to hear with Dr. Tedros and my daughter to do that. Vanessa can give you much more of the particulars of what it's like building this on the ground. But you compare a vision for the planet, which we need, and the challenge of climate, which is really the biggest physical challenge to all of us at this moment in time. And it's 100% certain. It's not 5%, 10%, 20%. It's 100% certain that the impacts that have already been coming true, already the predictions of the best scientists are coming true, and they say it's going to get worse. And that's going to shred the ability of communities to have the safety and the capacity to grow, take care of your kids rather than being in the hospital or taking care of one person. Or if there is no hospital, what happens then? The community begins to just shred. So there's a direct linkage here, folks, and it would be wonderful to have had a presentation yesterday which didn't push people away and give people reason to wonder why they shouldn't challenge the current world order, instead of and be able to build out a global response that gets the job done. Health is a critical component of winning that battle, and in two terms. One, in terms of convincing people that there's a reason to be engaged and do other things, and two, getting the job done and therefore not having the health crisis that could come otherwise.
Well said. Dr. Carey, the last time you were on the stage and you wrote a piece about this in Foreign Policy, telling the world how health policy is foreign policy, and that's what I'm hearing here as well. When you see the level of polarization and divisiveness that we have seen at the UN this week already, and given the work you do in the health sector, what is your sense at a ground level? How do we convince people and policymakers that this is an area that needs more care, more attention, more investment?
I mean, we did. We talked about this last year, and we talked about health being framed as defense. And I think the reality is that there is a deep mismatch happening right now in how we're prioritizing billions in defense versus trillions in defense versus 18 billion that we might be spending on health in this moment or need to spend on health. You know, we talked briefly about the polarizing rhetoric that we see today. I don't think it's actually helpful for us to focus on that, really, because whether you call it climate change or you call it the greatest con job, climate change is here. We're living it every day in the hotter summers we see, in the hurricanes that are slamming at more frequency and more ferocity that are affecting our societies, taking away our homes, changing disease patterns. And I'm a physician. And so whether it is delivering direct care to people who have asthma attacks and then they can't go to work, or if it is building health systems and health system resilience to meet the rising burdens of climate change, you know, we're seeing health be a very profound and lived effect. But to mobilize this moment, I think we have to focus on solutions, cutting greenhouse gas emissions that are actually making us sicker, and supporting communities to be able to adapt and have the things they need to be safe, prosperous, and have opportunity. And one of the key links that I think has to be made, and we've talked a lot about this, is that health actually is also wealth. When you look at the decisions getting made in the world today, it's economic. We are making economic decisions. Private sector, 1.8 trillion of assets now, the highest ever in history. And at the same time, that makes sense, that's their mandate, but how are we building that into sustainability? If they're smart, they're investing in the health and well-being of their workforce. Because it turns out extreme heat is costing the United States $100 billion a year in productivity currently. We know that just small adjustments can transform actually that loss into profit and sustainability going forward. And I think understanding that connection is critically important.
Dr. Tedros, you must be listening to all of this and feeling like we're all preaching to the choir. The WHO is also quite polarized right now. You have, you know, the United States doing what it's doing with your organization. What is your sense of a way forward? I mean, how do you bring countries together to focus on the message Dr. Carey just said?
Thank you. Thank you, by the way, for bringing us all together. With John, we were foreign minister same time and best allies. We used to work together very closely. And of course, later on, as you know, championing climate change and health. So I had the opportunity again to stay in touch with him. And of course, she's the bridge. Vanessa is the bridge. And she is our special envoy. So I think you have a good reason to bring us, the three of us together. Yeah. I fully agree with Vanessa, by the way. We have to focus on the solution. And WHO is passing through a very turbulent, what do you call it, times, difficult times. It's affecting us significantly, but we're trying to see the challenge as opportunity, turn it into opportunity. And it's helping us to look inside. And we're trying to make the organization more focused on its core mandate, sharper, and more independent. Actually, we saw this crisis coming. In 2017-18, the major risk we identified for WHO was dependency on few traditional donors, which may have two serious consequences. One, shocks like now, which causes the crisis, a shock because of funding cuts. And then the second is when some countries come with big money, there could be that it may compromise in our independence. So the solution we proposed then is broader donor base. And one of which the measures was for all member states to share the burden and to increase their membership fee. which they did, by the way. They agreed in 2022 to increase by 50%. This is the highest in the history of the organization. The largest increase was 3% in 77 years. So this was a significant increase, 50%. So they have done already 2 installments, by the way, but this has nothing to do with the US. And the way forward is the same, for all countries to share the burden. Then we can prevent similar shocks from happening, but it can ensure WHO's independence as well. So the solution now is to move in the same direction. We're doing that, by the way, for WHO, and we see actually opportunity, more opportunity. But as you said, the most impacted actually are the countries. And we're not worried about WHO, we're worried more about the countries that have been, in fact, impacted by the significant aid cuts. And we're trying to work with them. And even the solution for them is, for those countries, they have to see it as opportunity. And it should start from inside. For instance, many countries are affected by this mindset of aid dependency. And cleaning is always inside out, right? It should start from inside. So our proposal is, especially I'm from Africa, and it just embarrassed me actually to have that mindset. We have to clean from inside and try to really move into self-reliance. There are opportunities in our countries, in the developing world at large, to finance health from domestic resources. And we're advising countries to do that. But I'm very much encouraged because many leaders I have spoken to, even during the past week and the last 7 months, I can see a change in mindset and moving into self-reliance and saying we can have immediate solutions like taxes on alcohol, tobacco that can generate some money to cover the gaps which many countries are doing. And for the long term, it could be the public health insurance, a strategic solution. Wow. So self-reliance, I think, will be the case. But they have to look inside and understand there is an internal problem. And of course, there is the external as well. But they have to give priority to the internal, address that. And then they can work with all donors to address the external problems as well. So the future is see this as opportunity and try to ensure self-reliance.
Dr. Carey, yeah. If I can have you pick up there, because I think this is a very powerful and hopeful message. What is your sense of, we were talking about the USAID cuts earlier. How do you turn, how are you seeing countries around the world pick up on this and turn the current moment into opportunities on health?
I think Dr. Tedros is right. I mean, country-led plans that are really contextual to the problems, prioritizing the needs and opportunities of the community is going to be the way forward. But we need to be clear. The abrupt cuts that we have seen are killing people. And it is not making anyone safer or more prosperous. It was just reported, for example, it's going to cost the U.S. taxpayer $6 billion to close USAID. That cost is egregious. But that could be saving lives, right? It's been estimated that almost 500,000 people have died directly since the cuts have happened. So we can sit here in New York and have our conversations, which are important, yes, and we need to convene and we need to focus on solutions. But make no mistake, people are dying today because of what is happening. And so there does need to be a bridge. There does need to be a mobilization of that 1.8 billion, trillion profit. We need to be moving that forward into solutions that are thinking about our joint prosperity and well-being, but that are fundamentally saving lives. And it is not incongruent to want to do the right thing and to invest in health and well-being, to close equity gaps, to make people safer and healthier, and still see economic growth, or have your household have income, or actually do good and do well. These are very feasible pathways, and there are solutions out there, and it's going to require all of us to lean into those solutions, be smart, be pragmatic, and then to bring that forward to policymakers, but to step away from some of this politics. We do need to invest in country-led plans. Dr. Tedros and I are working together on a couple initiatives, along with many other partners, but that are being led by countries to mobilize domestic financing to look at how those individual contributions can be. But again, if the global architecture doesn't shift, it can't change. Africa spends more servicing debt than it does on health and education. That is a problem. So we have some fundamental things that we have to correct, but we do, again, need to think about how we can find the viable path forward, the shared language and the understanding that all the goals that we may want, whatever our political or partisan rhetoric is telling us, is actually quite aligned. And we just need, and I think that there are very pragmatic paths we can put forward, but it is grounded very much in the reality that we are talking about human lives every day, whether it is tons of carbon or whether it is aid cuts. This is whether people live or die.
Secretary Kerry, I feel like more than anyone else, you have done work in the area of trying to find common ground between adversaries. And I'm thinking now about, at the height of US-China competition, you were trying to find a pathway to speak to your counterpart at the time, Xi Jinping, the climate envoy, to find commonality. How can we work together on an issue that matters to the world, just as health does, climate does? Is there any lesson there? Because it often feels like, given the choice between competing with China or constraining China and working together on health or climate, our policymakers here often choose constraining. How do you change that paradigm?
By doing what you have to do, by proving to people that it makes a difference. When I was climate envoy for President Biden, Washington was in full-throated force competing with itself to see who could be the toughest rhetorically on China and sort of pushing China away. I found, working with China, China was a critical partner when we stopped Ebola in West Africa. China was a critical component of our being able to get the Iran nuclear agreement done, and to be able, in addition, to get all the chemical weapons out of Syria during a conflict. First time ever that weapons of mass destruction have been taken out during a conflict. How did we do it? Not just because we did it. I mean, we pushed it and we organized it, but others joined in that effort, including China, Russia, and others. Now, does that mean we don't have conflict with them that we have to address? Of course not. We have countless challenges with China, theft of intellectual property, Taiwan, Uyghurs. I mean, you run the list. We have challenges, but you've got to sit down, and that's what diplomacy is about. So even in the midst of all the challenges we faced, President Biden allowed me, deputized me, to continue to talk with the Chinese. And guess what? Even then, President Xi allowed President Xi Jinping and others, we made a difference. We got China to agree to list all greenhouse gases. Methane wasn't included. They now list all greenhouse gases in their NDC. We got China to agree that they would cooperate on a special methane reduction plan, because methane is 100 times more destructive than CO2. This is science, by the way. Science, mathematics, physics, and science. And you got the point. So it's also so basic, it's beyond belief. I mean, if we divided the end of this room into two rooms, and you had a wall over there, and we said, all of you, you get a choice. One room has all the coal-burning fumes and everything, particulates are coming out in that room. The other room has pure oxygen. Which room are you going to walk into? 100% are going to walk into the room with pure oxygen. That's the choice we face with respect to the climate crisis. What is our problem? Our problem is we are burning fossil fuel without capturing the emissions. If you capture the emissions, you have a whole different debate. But we haven't proven we can catch those emissions and build it out at scale and affordability. We can build out renewable energy at scale and with confidence. So these choices are just so fundamental. And I came to the conclusion, thanks to my daughter, that we have to change the narrative. We have to get people to understand what is really at stake here. The ability to work, the ability to live, the ability to build community, the ability to be healthier, the ability not to crowd our own hospitals at home with the detritus of what we burn without capturing those emissions. So we're voluntarily continuing, some of it not actively choosing to, but not making the choices that would prevent it. And we're not doing that. So it's acts of omission and acts of commission that come together to create this crisis. And we just, you know, what do they say when you're digging a hole and getting deeper and deeper in the hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to do. And the benefits will just be extraordinary in our ability to be able to address, you know, real issues globally. You're not the leader of the free world just because you beat your chest and say we're so exceptional. We're exceptional because we do exceptional things. Dealing with AIDS in Africa, you know, what Bill Gates did was exceptional. What America did, helping to get a generation of children who are not born with AIDS, which makes a huge difference to all the other choices you face in building community and life. So, you know, I think that we just have to hold our ground and continue to fight. I am actually very optimistic. I'm involved in trying to accelerate the energy transition, and I see all kinds of technologies that are ready to come online. We can win this battle, folks, but we got to get the deniers and the disinformation artists out of the way and use the full power of our country and of our brains to get the job done.
Welcome to our dinner table.
I love it. I mean, can I be invited?
Yeah, we allow time. We at least get to eat.
Yeah, we are way out of time. Dr. Tedros, I'm just going to give you like maybe 30 seconds. Bring us back to health. When you listen to a message like that and the power of diplomacy done in the right way, what hope are you drawing from the moment right now? And are there any green shoots you're seeing that could bring a message like that to your domain?
Hope. I think, you know, this year, for instance, I can give you one example. There was negotiation on pandemic agreement for the last 3.5 years. And it was approved last May. Many were skeptical. Many were skeptical, but it was approved. Meaning, it shows you that multilateralism is alive and well, despite the noise. So that gives me hope. And I can give you a long list, actually, what happened this year. But I think that is that's very important and enough, because this is an international treaty that all member states have agreed to move on.
I love that. Thank you for giving me hope. Thank you for giving everyone hope. Secretary Kerry, Dr. Tedros.
Please welcome the Rockefeller Foundation Senior Vice President